So, good morning. We will now start the SPOR and XCVMPD status update webinar. Thank you for joining us this morning. Before we start, a few housekeeping rules. Next slide, please. So, this webinar is being recorded and it will be made available through EMA corporate website and EMA YouTube channel. We are already recording the session. At certain points through the meeting, you will be able to send us questions or give your input via the Slido tool. Of course, interaction with Slido is voluntary and you may opt to remain anonymous, but if you choose to provide your personal name, you are hereby allowing us to process your personal data as explained in our privacy statement for Slido. Next slide, please. Throughout the session, you can ask us questions or give your input via the Slido tool. The code to join the Slido tool is written in this slide, and we will put it in the Slido and in the chat. And you can send and upvote your questions that you want to hear addressed at the end of each of the session of the topics today. Questions will be shown on the screen and EMA colleagues will be verbally addressing top 5 voted questions. So if we do get 200 questions, please bear with us. It's impossible for us to cover all, but we will try to address as much as we can in writing while the session is ongoing. Next slide, please. Now, due to the very high volume of questions that we have and a common feedback that we get from you, that it's hard for us to address all of the questions, we do request your assistance in 2 ways. First of all, it's very hard for us to triage over 200 questions and see who answers what. We don't all are the experts in each of the domain. So please help us by labeling the questions and which domain they refer to. If you're talking about organizations, it's OMS, PMS for products, RMS for referentials, substances, SMS, XCVMPD, and if it's generic, you can label them as SPOR. This will help us triage, filter, and make sure that the right colleague only looks at those questions and not all the questions that you're submitting to us. It would also help us to then filter out which questions need to be addressed at the end of each topic. So please help us by doing a little bit of curation of what type of question you're asking and what's the domain. Also, another courtesy that we ask so that we can be effective and really address the questions is if you can have a look at what questions have been asked. We tend to have repeated questions and we do spend a while addressing and repeating and copy pasting answers from one question to the next. So it would ensure that we don't miss any question if you look whether the question already exists. Next slide, please. Today, of course, the webinar materials, as always, will be shared in the SPOR portal document section in the EMA events webpage, and the recordings will be made available at EMA YouTube channel and EMA event webpage. Please do not go looking for the recordings today. We do take a while to finesse this and to publish it, but we will make them available as soon as possible after the webinar. The presentation, I understand you already have. Next slide, please. So as always, this is a status update webinar where we focus on just what we've done in the previous quarter, what we're doing in the next quarter to give you an overview of what's coming, what's been implemented, what's coming ahead, and if there are, and what are the impacts to you. So a brief status update. Now, today I just went through the housekeeping notes. The next topic on the agenda will be an overview of how SPOR, XCVMPD, and PMS fit together, just to give you context. And I would like to cover the topic of customer engagement and seek your feedback of how you feel it's more efficient for us to engage with you. Then we go into the individual topics with SMS update, OMS update, RMS, XCVMPD, and PMS as last. You will see that for every topic, we have a short 10-minute presentation and we have short 10-minute questions for each of the topics. So another important aspect that will help us is if you can target the questions for that specific session. Towards the end, there's a little recap of what we said, and there's a few more minutes left for Q&A, for things we haven't addressed before, and for feedback on how the webinar went. So without further ado, to the next slide, just a little bit of context of SPOR and XCVMPD and how things fit together. We have the individual SPOR domains, substances, referentials, OMS, and these are in themselves already used by many systems in the agency. So we have access and identity management using it. We have EAF using it, GMDP, UPD for the vets, and of course, XCVMPD referring to these vocabularies or reference data. Then industry updates product data primarily in XCVMPD, and that is used also by clinical trials, pharmacovigilance, and pharmacovigilance fees, and other processes as well. And what is entered in XCVMPD is then synchronized to PMS, synchronized to IRIS, and also shared with other processes that run on IRIS, such as centralized procedure management, inspections, shortages, antimicrobial sales and use information, web EAF, EPI, and many others. So a point for you to note is that if you need any substance organization referential data ahead of preparing applications or submitting data to XCVMPD, you should request it in SMS, OMS, and RMS ahead of these submissions. You cannot directly update the products in PMS, so if you do need to update products, you need to do so in XCVMPD. And we have industry and NCAs interacting with all EU systems where SPOR data is used, including product data. So I would like to talk to you a little bit about engagement. So we do every quarter a status update webinar such as this, where we focus on the achievements and what is planned for the next quarter to keep you up to date with what we're doing. We have one today, we have one scheduled for July and one for October. And we tend to do a yearly ramp up of all the domains. We used to call it the SPOR week. You had a full week of webinars, every day a different webinar on a different topic, going through the entire of the process of SMS, for example, or OMS, and also a technical SPOR API webinar and an identity access management webinar, as well as data governance. We have received feedback that those webinars are becoming maybe a little bit repetitive. So we would like to hear your views of how you think those events are run and how we can improve them. Another thing we also do is the SPOR customer satisfaction survey. So once a year, we send out an email to our registered users that have been randomly selected. They use the system or they attend webinars, and we ask to provide feedback on the quality of our services. And we've seen through the years that the interest or the response rate in these customer satisfaction surveys has been decreasing. So we would also like to know how we can do to improve the engagement and get a perception of your satisfaction and how we can improve your services. So your feedback is very appreciated. And if you bear with us, I would like to ask 5 minutes of your time to go through Slido. So please go to Slido. We will launch a poll, and we would pretty much like to hear your views of not in the questions, but in the polls. Give us a second. Survey 1. Please help us improve our engagement. Please tell us your feedback on these events, how you would like to see them run, if there's anything we're missing to improve it. And we will look at this and see how we adjust for the second half of the year. So please, 5 minutes, I beg of you, of your time, go to Slido. And it's a short survey. Please give us feedback on how we can improve the engagement with you going forward. Do we keep the SPOR week? Do we keep the customer satisfaction survey? Do we do something else? What do you want us to do? See if we can share the results live. If we cannot, we will for sure look at them after the event. I see 26 participants responding. We have roughly 550 people online. So please dial into Slido. You see the code on the screen. And please provide your feedback to us on how we can improve our engagement in the second half of the year. So we're showing the results online as we go in the type of events that you prefer the most. So far, people prefer the quarterly status update webinars. I still see a reduced number of answers. We do have 550 participants online. Please give us 5 minutes. You have to wait anyway, so might as well give us your feedback. Next one. Yeah. If we move to the next quarter, what type of events you prefer more? Other, we will look at these answers. Yeah. If we look at the SPOR week webinars, we have most people either maintaining it or adjusting it, providing a little bit more advanced training or complex scenarios. But we have support of that. An option we put forward here is whether, for example, whether we could put a recording and just be available for questions. We tend to receive feedback that you appreciate the questions and answers, but we're either presenting or addressing the questions in Slido. We can't be doing both. So we would appreciate feedback on what your preference is next time. And in terms of the customer satisfaction survey, the suggestion is to run it in webinars or run it for longer, leave it published so that people can address it. We can, yeah, and there's other suggestions on how to improve that.
Okay.
I suppose we can leave the poll open. So if you haven't provided your feedback yet, please do so. Go to Slido and provide the feedback throughout the presentation. It's appreciated. It's how we know how to target our efforts. So moving on with the hot topics or the interesting topics of today's session, we start with SMS, and I am going to hand over to Pedro Batista, the business lead.
Good morning. My name is Pedro Batista, and I will be giving our plan for SMS for the rest of the year. So in terms of data management activities, we will continue with our usual data enrichment exercises, covering the INNs, the USANs, the UNI, and the European Pharmacopoeia. And recently, we started 2 new custom attributes related to substance rolled in authorized human products. So we have a custom attribute for active substances and a separate custom attribute for excipients and adjuvants. And we will be maintaining this on a quarterly basis for the rest of the year. And once a year, we'll be updating the custom attributes that we already had related to the critical medicines. In terms of data quality, for this quarter, we'll be focusing on herbals, fungi, and animals, so both the whole organism and the plants. And in parallel, we'll be starting with the human vaccines, and this is a very complex substance type, so we are expecting that it will continue through the rest of the year. Then, in the end of the year, if time allows, we will start the cleansing of homeopathic substances, and we will try to finally address the substances with SVG Flex 0 that are currently linked to products. In terms of documentation, we have just recently published SMS guidance version 3.0, and we are planning to have frequent updates through the year. And in terms of modernization initiatives, as we had already communicated before, there is currently knowledge transfer ongoing to a new supplier. And if possible, towards the end of the year, we will try to add additional data fields in the substance exports. Next slide, please. So what have we completed in Q1? So like I've already briefly mentioned, we have done activities related to custom attributes. So we already had a custom attribute for active substances. We just increase the frequency of this update for a quarterly basis. And we created a new custom attribute for excipients and adjuvants that will also be maintained with the same frequency. It's important to know that these custom attributes are only visible in the SMS API. So if you are not yet connected to it, you can request access. So all types of users can connect to the SMS API. NCAs can have the full access to all substance data. Industry users or any other type of users can only see public data, but this custom attribute, it is public data. Then very recently, we have published a new version of the SMS guidance, and the main changes have been on the data enrichment exercises. So it contains information on these custom attributes that I just mentioned. And for the first time, it also includes business rules. So we have business rules mainly for chemicals, veterinary vaccines, and some excipients, but we have draft rules for all the substance types to give you more information on the type of information that you should provide us when creating a new change request. Next one. So what is coming next? We are starting the cleansing of organisms. So the herbals, the fungi, the animals, and the reason for prioritizing this group of substances, it's because it's a quick win. So they are easier to cleanse, then they are also easier to outsource, to free us time to focus on the more complex substances. Another reason is that by cleansing the organisms now, we are enabling the future cleansing of homeopathic substances and herbal extracts. So these two groups of substances depend on the organisms. So there is a relationship here. So we need to cleanse first the organisms, so then we can cleanse these related substance types. And the pre-cleansing in SMS has been completed. SVG discussions will start very soon. And because this is a relatively easy substance type or substance group, we are expecting to finish most of the work this quarter. In parallel to this, we are starting the cleansing of the human vaccines, and these are the main substance types that were missing from the critical medicines list. So we have cleansed all the substances related to the critical medicines list except the human vaccines. So when we start this cleansing exercise with the SVG, we'll be prioritizing the human vaccines from the critical medicines, and then we will focus on the human vaccines linked to other approved products, and then at a later stage, the human vaccines that are still under development. In terms of guidance, so we are planning to have iterative versions over the year. So instead of just making one big change once a year, so we will plan to do smaller changes, but maybe once a quarter or whenever there is a new group of substances cleansed, we will adjust the business rules accordingly so that you have access to updated information more frequently. And in terms of knowledge transfer, so as has been mentioned a few times already, there is currently a handover from our previous IT supplier to the new one. So the improvements in SMS that we had planned for earlier this year are not delayed, as well as any other SMS changes. So to summarize, we just published SMS guidance version 3.0 with focus on data enrichment and business rules. And we have 2 custom attributes related to substance role that we'll be maintaining on a quarterly basis. We are currently working on the cleansing of organisms and the related business rules for this substance type, which will be published in the next version, 3.1. Then we'll be also working on human vaccines and continuing to update the SMS guidance. And one big topic outstanding is the confidentiality of substances. Then later in the year, we have planned the homeopathic cleansing and addressing the substances with SPG flag 0. So that was my presentation for SMS. Now go for the questions and answers. So first question is, should we expect additional flag 0 substances, and is the cleanup process still ongoing? Yes. So SMS has around 69,000 substances. We have currently reviewed 46% of them, so there's still over 30,000 substances to be reviewed. This is a very lengthy process because it's a very complex process where each substance type has completely different complexities and business rules. So there is still a lot of work to be done, many substances to be cleansed, and especially when we start with the homeopathics, I expect many substances to get SPG flag 0. So yes, the answer is there will be more substances with SVG flag 0 coming in the coming months and years. Then when will be the preferred term changes implemented in SMS? So if we change the substance preferred term at the moment, this can have an impact on pharmacovigilance activities. So the relinking the ICSRs and SUSRs linked to the substance might be affected. So we have put these changes on hold, and there is a technical development ongoing in this pharmacovigilance module to prevent this linking to be affected when we update the substance preferred term. So once this is deployed, then we'll be able to change preferred terms whenever is required. So there is what will happen with substances in OPA-Dry group. Example, OPA-Dry white is SVG flag 0 and refer to OPA-Dry, and this substance is marked as unspecified. So we have the business rules for OPA-Dry substances in the SMS guidance, and the general rule is that all OPA-Dries need to be registered with its code and its color. And if this information is provided, then the substance will get SVG flag 1. If this information is not available, then there is no added value in having OPA-Dry white or OPA-dry pink compared to just OPA-dry. It's just an unspecified substance. So that is why OPA-dry white is not considered valid. OPA-dry by itself, it's considered unspecified, and it can be used if that information is not available. But to get SVG flag 1, these substances need to have the code and the color. Can you explain better how to connect to the SMS API? What are the advantages? So you can request access to it via the EMA account management. The details on all the instructions required are available in the SMS guidance. And the advantages is you get access to, assuming that you are an industry user, you get access to all the public SMS data on real time. So right now, you can make queries in the substance interface in Iris. You can download the export in the SPOR portal, but this way you can automate, integrate your system to get substances from SMS on real time. What does EMA suggest if non-preferred terms are present in SMPC, but EMA flags with SVG flag 0? So there's also instructions on what you should do in this scenario in the SMS guidance. If it is SVG flag 0 and a duplicate, then you should refer to the replacement substance. If it is specified, so it will depend on a product by product basis, but you should try to refer to a more specific substance if possible, or if not, then you can continue to refer to the unspecified one. And if it's invalid, then again, also depends product by product, but you should definitely correct it with something else. It's good with more new attributes, but they need to be searchable in the API, not just viewable. I would like to find all substances used as active ingredients in a product without looping through substances. That is a very good point. That is indeed in our pipeline of changes to improve the searches possible via the API. This is in the pipeline, but because of this handover of IT supplier, we are not able to make this change at this moment. But as soon as it's possible, this is our top priority to address.
I think this is a repetition.
Yeah, that question has already been addressed. Do the marketing authorization holders need to align update the substance names taking into account the SVG flag? So the SVG flag itself is at substance record level. So it's not at name level. It's at the whole substance. So the main purpose is to highlight the substance record that should be kept. So if there is a duplicate, the substance record to be kept as SVG flag 1, the substance record that should not be used will be nullified in the future, gets SVG flag 0. What is the rationale to have the granularity substance to be listed along with the main substance when it is formulated by defined granular substance? Example, OPA code is made of defined granular substance. Did not understand why we should have both mentioned when substance is sufficient to be added. This question is not very clear to me. But the current rules on XCVMPD, so to record the product composition, is that all substances mentioned in the SMPC should be included in the product record in XCV and PV. So in some SMPCs, there is OPA code and then all the components of the OPA code. In other SMPCs, there are just the components. In other SMPCs, it's just OPA code. So this is also related to how the product was approved, and it changes with NCAs, it changes with the timelines. So you should just follow the business rules of XCV MPD for applicable to that concerned product. When will be SMS working in SPOR in the same way that OMS and RMS? So I suppose this is a question related to the portal. So unfortunately, the development of a proper portal for SMS has not yet been prioritized. But when it will be prioritized, it will not be done in SPOR. So it will be done in Iris. In the user, it will be an improvement of the substance interface that is already present in Iris. And then it will be possible to see all the public substance data there, and in the future to submit change requests. But SMS will not be in the SPOR portal. Are chemical APIs covered in version 3.0? So I suppose this is related to the business rules published in the guidance. So yes, so chemicals are, the rules for chemicals are well described there. If one substance is given a SVG flag 0, will we overturn to SVG flag 1 at a later point in time? So we hope not, but sometimes this does happen. So this is an exceptional case where a business rule that has been defined, then it has been challenged, and a decision has been taken to change it, or it also might be related to the products that were linked to it. So if most of the products are linked to substance A, then we will likely keep substance A and nullify substance B. But this is a very exceptional scenario. I know it has happened a few times, but again, we have 69,000 substances. So there will always be exceptions that we do not foresee, but we need to handle them. Any user can connect to API, yes. So any user can have access, can connect to the API and get access to all public substance data. And I think last question, SVG blank will be, suppose, reviewed by this year. So the answer is no. I presented the plan of cleansing exercises that we had for this year, which are organisms, the human vaccines that are linked to approved products, and homeopathics in the end of the year. But there are still many substance types or groups that will be uncleansed by the end of the year, such as herbal extracts, nucleic acids, cell therapy, gene therapy. Again, it's many substances. We want to do this right. Our resources and the SVG resources are limited, so we are prioritizing based on importance and quickness of the cleansing. So it's a fine balance here, and we are trying to do our best to cleanse as much as possible, as well as possible, but it won't be finalized this year for sure.
Next one is a repetition. And there's one more, last question.
Will EMA set timelines for updating those substances with SVG flag 0, with SVG flag 1? So we have mentioned this in quite some webinars already, so you can do that if you want to do so. So you can update your products whenever you have the time, if you are willing to do so. If you don't want to do it, if you don't have the time to do it, we will prepare data feeds in the impacted products to relink the substances from SVG flag 0 to SVG flag 1. And before we do this exercise, we will communicate the timelines. So it will not happen soon. As soon as we know it, we will communicate and we will share the EV codes of the impacted products and impacted substances, so that you are aware and you can adjust your systems with time.
So, just a brief recap and summary. So on SMS, the focus continues to be data cleansing. So we've started a few years back and we will continue a few years ahead. It's a long journey to do the full cleansing of the big substance list, because some of them are very complex and it involves digging into documents, it involves consulting experts. So the journey will continue. There is a flag to identify that. As soon as we identify new requirements in SMS, we try to address them. And you see the example of these custom attributes. The way forward is, first we need a placeholder in the system to put the data in. And that's what we do to complete the data into our system. Then from a technical perspective, we make it available for viewing, for browsing in the exports. And the next step indeed is to do the PMS API and to search for these things. So it's an iterative process. And we do these steps because it's a matter of effort and also a matter of usage. We have a lot more users using the exports files than necessarily the API, but we do have intention to go there. In terms of long-term plans of Portal for SMS, as Pedro mentioned, it hasn't been prioritized. The focus of the EU network has been products, and the investment is going on the work that we need to do. Products, simply put, because SMS, we do have a solution in place. It's not perfect, but there's a way to register, to request substances, to register substances, to export it, and to have access to it via the API. But every year, we keep putting it for prioritization, and we hope that eventually we will have an improved solution for substances as well. So that's the summary of what we are doing with SMS. And to make matters clear, we are also investing on guidance and documentation and these sessions with the audience. I see that there is a few lingering questions. I think Pedro can address them in writing if there's anything that pops up. And we also have a slot at the end of today. So I suggest we move on to the next topic. So now handing over to Deborah Martij, the OMS business lead. Deborah.
Thank you. So for OMS for this year, what do we have in the pipeline? Starting with our yearly, in terms of customer service, towards the end of the year, again, we're going to do our annual review of our frequently asked questions. This is a document available in our OMS portal. And at the same time, any changes that may be required, we will implement them in the knowledge articles currently available in Service Desk portal. In terms of data management, so during Q1, we finally implemented the new registration process for natural persons registry to allow natural persons to register in OMS. There is, of course, some conditions to this register. We'll see it. We've seen it in previous webinars, but we'll see again in the next slide. A new activity that we implemented last quarter, which was the monthly currency. We used to do this on a yearly basis, but we increase the frequency of this activity. We'll see the main reasons also in the next slide. We will conclude the mappings to support a new tool from HMA on risk assessment. We'll see also more information in the next slide. Towards the end of the year, OMS aims to expand our contact networks. This just to help with potential questions at legal entity level. We're still trying to understand how we're going to do this expansion. It's going to be an activity that will work principally and initially with the user group. And this, last but not least, this goes in hand with a new feature we aim to implement in the upcoming quarters, which is the version reason. Most of you have heard about this feature for some webinars ago. And with this, of course, once this feature is implemented, we will be able to enrich all our records. All new versions will have a version reason, will have the source of a request, the source of a change, and what type of change happened to the record. In terms of data quality, of course, we'll continue working on our data quality profiles, improving and not only improving, but continue creating new dashboards. We will continue with our review of legal entity types. What we want to do here is understanding if what we have is still accurate or if in the meantime something has changed since we last created our OMS data quality standards. Once this assessment has been done, we'll take it into the user group to do a proper impact assessment, and depending on the outcome of this assessment, or EMA will implement certain changes to a certain group of affected organizations. In terms of documentation, for this year, we want to create a new policy in terms of how we manage alternative names. We'll see more information in the next slide. We want to do a review of our control vocabulary. This is the document where we capture the definition of each category and when to use it. This is a document that has not been reviewed for some time, and there is a need to go back to it. And last but not least, we want to finally publish a version, at least an initial version of the OMS merges. This is no more than a guidance on how those merges work, what is the expected outcome to some of those merges. This is just for transparency purpose, so that everyone knows what's happening in OMS when a merge takes place. In terms of awareness, is the same calendar you've seen in SMS. There's no changes. In terms of modernization, again, the same knowledge transfer. This is happening across SPOR domains. And last but not least, the version reason that I've already talked about. And towards the end of the year, if time allows, we hope to already have time to work on the return change request feature, something that we have in our pipeline, but it had to be delayed because of the knowledge transfer. Now, in terms of work completed, so during the previous slide, I told you 3 times that I would mention I would give you more information in terms of natural person registration. You've seen this slide multiple times. So this registration process was created in order to support veterinary procedures in UPD and the issue of EudraGMDB certificates, as well as EV marketing, EV holders that may not be registered as a company, but because they're acting as marketing authorization holders, they need to be registered in OMS. So these are the exceptions. And what we did in the last quarter, basically, we went through all the tickets that have been open whilst we were discussing and creating the process for this registration to take place. So we officially close all the backlog, and we continue receiving requests. We will assess every time we receive. These requests have an SLA of 22 working days, so bear with us. We will get back to you within our expected SLAs. If you want to have more information about the process, this is available in our OMS portal under the document OMS Data Protection Notice. And the aim of this activity is just to improve our OMS service. We don't expect more people to come to us to register, because these registration will only be allowed for specific cases. Other activity that we started performing last quarter, which is the monthly currency. This is an activity that we've been doing for years now, and it used to be an yearly activity, and we're now moving into a monthly activity. This will help us ensure that the OMS information is still current, and at the same time create a process efficiency and to prevent that we store and we publish outdated information. This change was necessary in order to review records that have not been updated for the past 2 years. Of course, this will help us improve data quality of our data, and at the same time, it will prevent inactive organizations from being incorrectly using applications and regulatory procedures. With this internal process, this does not mean that we will no longer handle change requests. This is, of course, just a backup plan. Companies are still requested to inform OMS every time an organization ceases to exist as a legal entity. This is still valid. This activity is so that is a backup plan for us to ensure the currency of OMS data. And last but not least, so it's an activity that you've seen that we talked in previous webinars. So this mapping, OMS is helping with this mapping. This mapping will help aid this database, the post-risk management, the post-marketing risk assessment tool, to expedite the communication between the network in terms of surveillance results. And this will be done basically with the use of one unique identifier, which will be the OMS Loc ID, which will be visible in this AGMA post-marketing risk assessment tool. We've concluding there was 2 major work to be mappings to be performed as part of this enrichment or mapping activity. First was the manufacturers, with the product manufacturers, which we concluded, and we are about to conclude the API manufacturers. We have, I believe, 10 as of this morning. We have 10 records missing, so we will be closing this activity very soon. With this, so again, we aim to improve the data quality of our data, since all API and finished products manufacturers will be mapped to an OMS record and HMA database. There will be in the HMA database, you will have these OMS IDs for using regulatory procedure that you can later use in regulatory procedures, and for and that they will be required also for PMS enrichments. What's coming next for Q2? So as I said, as I touched base already, we aim to start to develop a policy on alternative names. This why we will be performing this activity, just so that we can have a clear data management rules and that everyone uses the same rules and there are no inconsistencies on how the data is maintained in OMS. How we'll start this policy. So we'll start an internal activity with key user group to define the scope and the focus of this policy, and the next steps. How are we going to move forward to better create this document? With this, we aim to provide guidance, clear, transparent guidance to the users on the correct use of alternative names in regulatory procedures. Still open, still ongoing, and will take also a bit of the upcoming quarter, Q2, the knowledge transfer, as Pedro already referred. And last but not least, the version reason, something you've seen in previous webinars, but at this point, just to highlight, of course, this feature will be a major improvement to our database. It will help us have a more transparency towards the information and how the OMS information is changing. And we'll be doing this by adding a comment version to say basically where the change come from and why did it change. So at this point, this feature is currently in UAT environment. We aim to move it to do. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be performing UAT. We'll be testing this feature in the UAT environment before we move into production. And just to let you know that we will be notifying all registered API users 2 weeks in advance of this production deployment. At the moment, what are we advising users to do? Because this feature is already in UAT. If you need to do any preparation for future integrations, if you need to do any planning, please start doing this by using UAT environment. What is in UAT is what will be implemented in production. It's just a different environment. So all these activities that you may need, start doing them now, so that once you receive the notification, the 2 weeks notice, you will be already ready to implement your necessary changes in your systems. And last but not least, just some highlights as what change we finally concluded, and we are now registering natural persons for certain that meet certain criteria. We've started the monthly currency instead of the yearly currency, ongoing the knowledge transfer, the version reason that we expect to have it releasing into production this quarter, the return change request functionality, we expect to have it hopefully towards the end of the year, and an ongoing review of our legal entity types. What's coming? Again, policy. It has been an activity that we've received a lot of questions around the use of alternative names, and we hope with this policy will help. The review of the category documents and descriptions, and also in our pipeline, some improvements and upgrades to our OMS portal. And I don't know if we have any OMS questions in Slido.
We do have some. Just to highlight some differences. So In every presentation, we go through what we're changing, and it's mostly data quality improvements, service improvements of benefit to you, but not necessarily an impact. You may have noticed in Deborah's slide, there was a little exclamation mark. So from now on, where we do perceive that there was a bigger impact to you, we will try to flag it. And this is such a situation. So we're changing something in the OMS API. We have already made that change available in UAT environment, and we will give 2 weeks notice when we deploy it. So we do urge people to prepare for that because it's a system change and it does have a concrete impact. So this is how we plan to flag things forward when we perceive that it's a bigger impact. So watch out for these symbols going forward. And now I think we can go back to the questions.
Okay. So do you recommend validating an organization location in OMS, even if there are still products linked in EV? Those affected products can be updated to the new location independently of the information in the SMPC. I will be able to address the first one, but probably, yes, if an organization or a location is no longer valid, so if an organization ceases to exist, or if a company is no longer using a physical location, regardless if there are products linked or any other regulatory procedures linked to those entities, if they cease to exist, they need to be deactivated in OMS. Remember, OMS manages legal entities, and for that reason, when they cease to exist, we need to be notified of the same. We don't deactivate data only when there are no products used. No, OMS is an independent system, and when legal entity or location is no longer needed, it will be deactivated.
Maybe just to clarify, the big difference between OMS and SMS is XCVMPD was already using substances, and that's why we can't now nullify and activate a substance if it's referenced in the product. XCVMPD is not using data from OMS, the other way around. So that's why we can inactivate, and we should inactivate the organization as soon as we know that it ceases to operate. Then how and when we reflect it in products is a separate matter. So that's why there's a big difference, and I fully understand the confusion to users. We wish we could have done the same for RMS and for SMS, but that was already in place before we delivered these new systems. So we're trying to navigate a transition and correct the data as best as we can.
So, thank you. Is there any technical API given from EMA for OMS data synchronization? Yes, like SMS, OMS also has a dedicated API. So if you wish to have access to our API, there's all sorts of guidance how to use in our OMS portal. So I urge you to consult our OMS portal. Towards the end of the documentation available, you'll see, I believe it's the last 4 documents. You have guidance, you have a form that you'll have to populate. You'll need to do a short test to ensure that your connectivity is working. Any plans to notify registered users of a given organization of changes performed in their associated organization, either by address doctor or another? So this is an activity that is in our pipeline for some time now. Yes, after you didn't see in the slides, but this is actually so in our pipeline, by order, we have version comments, then we want to implement the return change request feature, and right after we want to start working on this subscription information. So hopefully in next year, we will be able to have.
Just to clarify a few aspects here. So our intention is to have a subscription functionality that you come to OMS and you will select which records you're interested in following. It might not necessarily just be your organization, because if you're using manufacturers or sponsors or whatever, for whatever reason, you're not necessarily registered or affiliated to that organization. But you would have to come to OMS, select which organizations you're interested, and when there is a change in those records, you would receive some sort of email communication. There has been a change, possibly not all the details. So this is what we have in RMS, and this is what we're hoping to implement. But as Deborah mentioned, right now we need to complete the knowledge transfer to the new supplier. Versions and traceability is very important to us, because people ask us, why are we changing the data? Who changed it? What was the reason? And that's something we want to urgently provide clarity on. Then the second bit is the returning CRs, because from feedback in this customer satisfaction survey, your colleagues told us it's very annoying to have things rejected. You would prefer to add things to the same request. So it's based on your feedback that we're doing that. And because we can't do it all, this comes third. So again, if this is not the case, this was the value of the customer satisfaction survey and how you can kind of guide us in terms of your needs and preferences of what we do next. And I'm just taking note as we speak to see if we can find a clever way to collect that input on these webinars as well. So thank you for the questions.
If I already have an account using an email with OMS or organization registry, can I use the same email address to register a natural person? You can, yes. Now, of course, there will be a set of requirements for you to register this person, a specific natural person. So I always please consult this OMS data protection notice. Over there, you'll have all the mandatory steps, the required steps for this registration process to go successfully. We have experienced timing issues for MAH address changes where an NCA, example Denmark, requires OMS update. Example for the GMDP license update already before the final legal document from trade registry is available to enable OMS update. Is email communicating with NCAs to align these timings? I will try to answer, but please write a new comment in case I did not address your main concern. So what happened is OMS always provides the latest version of the data. It's possible that an NCA is issuing a certificate before they notice a certain location needs to be added to OMS. But this is why we always say OMS needs to come first. We cannot have a certificate being issued before the date is on OMS. Either GMDP consumes OMS on a mandatory basis. So always make sure that OMS data is up to date before having a certificate issued by the NCAs.
Deborah, if I understand the question, it seems to me that NCAs are indicating or asking the companies to do the changes, the variations before they even have a confirmation from the trade registry and OMS that the address has been changed. That's what I read here. So this is a new case. I'm not personally aware of us having this. We're not necessarily communicating on NCAs on this topic, so we'll have to follow up on that and see, because the MDH, what's the situation?
Because our rules have not changed.
No, so
we always need, if it's a legal address, because it seems to be the case, you're referring to a trade registry, we need to have this trade registry in case it's a very specific address. So without this trade registry, we will not be able to create. There are, of course, other exceptions, other locations that can be created in OMS. But if it's, for example, a combined address with multiple doors, and we will only be able to maintain these in OMS when it's the legal address.
So I kindly ask if the person who submitted this question, if they can submit a ticket with a little bit more information.
With lock IDs
With
and
lock IDs or an example or what concretely happened so we can follow up. I don't think we're familiar with this case just yet. So apologies for that. So the answer is sadly no, because it's the first we're hearing it.
Thank you. We recently had 2 examples that email validated address because not in non-EU national registry because of the local legislation requirements.
So I think I can take this one. So what we do in this currency check that Deborah explained, we go to the established sources of information, so the national business registries, and see if the organization is still there. And if the organization is still not there registered, that's when we inactivate. That's what we do with currency. And we're now doing it more frequently, not just once a year. So the data ownership is we trust the reference source of information, which is the National Business Registry. We don't ask the company, are you still in the market? We look at the reference authority for that information. Now, we have had cases where we thought there was only one national trade registry, and actually we inactivated a few things in US, and then we realized that there's some districts or counties or states, more registries than we were aware of. We quickly revised the situation and reactivated the organization. So that has happened, and it's still a risk that can happen if we're not aware of all the national business registries out there. That's why Deborah showed you in the plan that we are using the key user group, and we have a focus activity this year to see if we really do a wider sweep and we don't miss any of them. And whether we can expand also our contact network and reach out to different regions, to different national business registries, and see if they can share more information with us, or even Asian trade associations or other regions, stakeholders who could help us out with that. So yes, the data ownership is clear. For us, it's a reference authority. It's not the company. It's the reference authority who approves that company to be in the market. That's our data owner. And we look at that information. We may have had cases where we believe there was only certain trade national business registries, and then we later found out more. We quickly reactivate them when we detect that, and we're making efforts this year with the key user group to see if we can revalidate our list, expand our list to prevent this from reoccurring in the future.
Okay, thank you. When will all manufacturers be obligated to have an OMS ID? Well, this is not exactly a question for OMS. This is a question for each regulatory system. OMS will register basically any manufacturer that comes to us and asks to have this registration. We don't ask for a reason for this data to be created. Now, the mandate of a manufacturer to be registered in OMS will be defined by a consuming system. So this has happened gradually. We started with the elder GMDP. Now we have a PMS also consuming this information from us. We recently had EBQM as part of the issuing of the CEP certificates, also started consuming OMS on a mandatory basis. More recently, we now have 2 NCAs coming to us saying that they want to have OMS data on a mandatory basis in their internal databases. So this mandate of manufacturers. It's something that needs to come from each consuming system, not from OMS. So gradually we'll get there, but it's a question that needs to be asked.
And just to say, so for European purposes, because the main system where we capture all the manufacturers is EuroGMDP, they need to be either approved in Europe or inspected. We believe most manufacturers are there. There were some concerns whether all the starting materials, active product ingredient manufacturers were there. I think that was also addressed when EDQM came on board, so at least we got a few more. Just to clarify what Deborah is doing, so we're now mapping other databases where manufacturers exist. And the example is this HMA database. But strictly speaking, we don't expect to find more manufacturers. We're just making sure that we recognize that it's one and the same organization that they're talking about. But we believe we have already a fairly good coverage of the manufacturers that we need for European purposes. So we don't have all the manufacturers in the world, but we also don't need them. We just need the ones for European purposes.
We still have time.
Yeah. I think in the interest of time, because I see a lot more questions on PMS, we will move ahead and Deborah will kindly address any question that shows up in writing. So please bear with us. And if we move ahead. We have now RMS, I guess.
Yes.
And now we hand over to Jaume.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Jaume Gonzalez.
My name is Jaume Gonzalez. I'm the lead for RMS. So in terms of customer service, RMS is planning to start a pilot in Q3 to help NCAs with any mapping questions or services that they may need. This is still to be confirmed, and we will let you know more when information is available. As data management activities, we are planning to start the design of a bulk update process for EMDN, which is the list of medical devices from the European Commission. And we will provide enhanced support to NCAs for the provision of ATC translations. Both of these services are planned to start this quarter, and they should go until the end of the year. With regards to data quality, there is a lot in the plan, as you can see. So we're currently reviewing the units of measurement, where we are mainly reviewing the unit symbols and the EUCOM codes, and this is planned to finish at the end of this quarter. At the end of December last year, we started the review of the manufacturing activities list, where we created or updated short names and descriptions for several terms. And this activity concluded in January this year, and I will touch upon this later as well. In Q1 this year, we also published the 2025 version of the ATC human and vet lists, and we also published the MEDRA version 28.0. The updates of MEDRA 28.1 and VEDRA version 21 are planned for Q3 this year. For Q2 this year, we are also planning to review the list of manufacturing activities, and specifically we will look at aliases and other names, and also to all the pending change requests. Also planned for this quarter is the review of the special precautions for storage, shelf life, and material lists. In the initial phase, we will be identifying subject matter experts for these lists, and the actual review will start later in the year. And again, I'll touch upon this a bit later. Another piece of work planned for this quarter is the review of the veterinary variation classification, and also the publication of the above mentioned EMDN list. Last but not least, in the data quality area is the ongoing work on new and updated data quality profiles, and also the update of data quality reports, where the plan is to complete or to improve term descriptions in RMS, also to assign current terms to those terms in RMS that are marked as non-current, and to complete target species terms that are missing the information on the superior hierarchy level, amongst others. On the documentation area, the main work will be the publication of missing list information documents in RMS. This information already started at the beginning of the year, and this is planned to be completed by the end of the year. Planned for this quarter is also the publication in the RMS document area of a summary document containing all the yearly updates of the ATC human list, the ATC vet list, and the VEDRA list. And this is mainly for transparency and readability. In terms of awareness and visibility, my colleagues have already explained the plan, so I will not repeat what has already been said. And with regards to modernization activities, and also as mentioned by my colleagues, we are currently in the process of doing the knowledge transfer of the new to the new IT supplier. For Q2, we have planned to work on the functionality to get historical versions of an RMS term via the API. And we will be working on the upgrades and improvements of the RMS portal. And then last but not least, we have scheduled work on the integration between the RMS API and the Medra API for the third quarter of this year. If I can have the next slide, please. So as mentioned earlier, one of the activities completed in the first quarter of this year was the review of the manufacturing activities list. The reason for this review was that many terms didn't have short names or descriptions, and this created confusion, especially in systems such as the electronic application form and PMS. So a multidisciplinary group of experts was gathered, and discussion started in December of last year. And as a result, short names and descriptions were added to several terms in January of this year. We believe that descriptions will help with the understanding of the terms, and short names will make readability better in consuming systems. And at the same time, this should reduce the number of questions or errors at the time of submissions involving this list. In addition, the ATC Human, ATC Vet, and Medra lists were updated last quarter, since the owners of these lists updated the content, and RMS, of course, needs to reflect the latest information. So the RMS team did a bulk update soon after the owners shared those updates with us. And as a result, we are expecting the number of change requests to add new terms or codes to be reduced. If I can have the next slide, please. So another work stream that started last quarter and is planned to last until the end of the year is the publication of list information documents. As there's approximately 30% of the RMS lists which don't contain this document. So as you can see on the slide, since the beginning of the year, we have published 8 new list information documents, and you can see the lists concerned on the screen. And for the moment, we have another 9 list information documents in the pipeline. Perhaps it's worth mentioning the national classification list, and this is why it's in bold, as not everyone may be aware of it. So this is a list of codes that resemble the ATC codes, but in reality, these codes have not been approved by WHO, and these will be typically codes from national classification lists. Now, because many products in XCVMPD refer to these type of codes, and to be able to synchronize XCVMPD and RMS for the implementation of PMS, this list was created. So with the list information document now published for this list, this should help increase awareness, and it should reduce the number of questions that we receive for this list, as well as submission errors. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we cover the work plan for the present quarter. So to begin with, we are reviewing the units of measurement list as some data fields were either missing or incorrect. Specifically, we are reviewing the symbols and EUCOM codes, and we expect to complete the changes by the end of this quarter. We are aware that a more in-depth quality review is needed for this list, and this will be planned for the next opportunity when resources are available. The benefit of this action is that we will end up with a list of better data quality, and this should reduce the number of technical issues caused by this missing or incorrect data. Additionally, we will be doing another review of the manufacturing activity list, and in particular, we'll be looking at aliases and other names, as only a few terms contain them. The consultation with SMEs, subject matter experts, is planned for this quarter, and the updated list and minutes of the discussions should be published soon after the completion. The expectation is that aliases should improve the understanding of the terms, and it should reduce, again, the number of questions received or the number of rejections due to lack of awareness of this list. The next work stream is the review of the special precautions for storage, shelf life, and material list, as there is an increasing number of change requests received for these lists, and these should be ready for PMS implementation. The plan is to identify the subject matter experts for each one of these lists this quarter, and then to start the review around Q3 this year, and to implement the changes by the end of the year. Once the changes are implemented, the lists should be ready for PMS implementation, and this should facilitate the application process for any regulatory procedures that are linked to these lists. And then last but not least, and because at the moment there is no obvious way within the RMS portal to identify exactly what has changed with the yearly updates, we are planning to publish a summary document in the RMS documentation area showing exactly what has changed with the yearly updates of the ATC Human, ATC Vet, and Federal lists. So the plan is to start this in the present quarter, and the idea is that the document will show the new terms inserted, the terms that have been updated, together with the RMS IDs and the source IDs for easy identification. And we believe that this should increase transparency, and users should be in a much better position to quickly identify what has changed with those yearly updates. And then if I can have the last slide, please, just to recap on the highlights for RMS. So actions completed so far this year are the review of the manufacturing activity list, where we reviewed short names and descriptions. and then the 2025 updates of the ATC human and vet lists and MEDRA version 28. Ongoing work is the update of the veterinary variation classification list. This is planned for the next 2-3 weeks approximately, and this is linked to new legislation about to kick off in the next few weeks. So as a result, there will be some scopes added and many others updated. We are also continuing the work on the RMS data quality profiles. We're working on the list information documents, and the knowledge transfer to the new IT supplier is also ongoing. In terms of future changes in the short term, we will perform another review of the manufacturing activity list to review aliases and any pending change requests. We will review the special precautions for storage, shelf life, and material lists, and we will publish the summary of changes for the ATC human, vet, and VEDRA lists. And then more longer term changes planned are the integration of the RMS API with the MEDRA API, the publication of the medical device list, and the work on a bulk upload process for the EMDN list. So this is all I had to present for RMS. I think now we can move to questions.
No. You need to filter
Is the filter by start?
by start, and
There, it only has to be by start.
I think most.
Otherwise, do you want to
sorry.
scroll down? And I
Yeah,
can
we need to scroll down. I think, sorry, we're trying to label, but a few questions weren't labeled. So I see 2 questions for you, John, and maybe I read them out loud because most of them have been addressed. So first question is, what SLA does EMA work to when it comes to getting new standard terms added in RMS once approved and published by the relevant standards organization?
Okay, this was referring to standard terms from EDQM.
Standard, I suppose so. Standard terms from EDQM.
Okay, so in principle, any new terms or any updates approved by EDQM will make their way into RMS through the weekly synchronization process that we have. Yeah, so there's the RMS API that is connected to the EDQM API, and once a week there is a call, and any updates or new terms should be propagated. So the quick answer is at the most within a week, the changes should be within RMS. Now, if for any reason that's not the case, or if you spot any issues or any terms missing, please contact us and we will look into it.
But maybe just to add there, the question is about approved and published by EDQM. But just to add that very often users require those terms even before they're approved. So we register them in RMS as provisional. We prepare the request and we send it to EDQM, and we get then this weekly sync to make sure whether they've been approved or not. But very frequently, we already have the terms registered in RMS even before they appear on the EDQM. So we register them as provisional. If they're rejected, then we nullify them.
That's correct. And maybe just to complement, so in some cases, NCAs will contact EDQM directly. So on those situations, the term will not be appearing in RMS as provisional because NCAs have contacted directly EDQM. But if the request has come through us, as Isabel mentioned, as soon as it's validated in the RMS system, it will be published as provisional. Indeed.
Then I see Most of them have been addressed, so I think there's only one that hasn't been addressed. Is there a known bugs list available somewhere for RMS or RMS API?
So we do have a list of bugs, but as far as I'm concerned, that's for internal use, because I think some of the issues may not affect external people necessarily. So we do have that, but I'm not aware of. As far as I know, we don't typically share this outside EMA. But I mean, if the person who raised this would like to elaborate or maybe contact me outside of the meeting and see if there's any specific concerns so that I can follow up. But I would say, the main bugs or issues, if they concern external users, we would typically raise them in these quarterly updates.
So I think most of the questions have been addressed, Jaume, by you before. If there's more, you'll be available in writing to address in writing or at the end. And I suggest we move on to the next, which is XCVMPD. So off to Veronica Baker.
Good morning, everyone. In terms of the activities that we have planned for 2025, I'm going to start with the customer services overview. We have started the review of the answers that we provide on a regular basis through Service Desk to ensure that these are clear and the most up-to-date. And we are also reviewing the text that you receive in the emails that we send you as a follow-up communication when your medicinal product information in XCVMPD has been validated. In Q2, we will also be conducting a review of the currently published XCVMPD questions and answers, which we have published on our webpage at the moment. And we will be transferring them into so-called articles in ServiceNow. So you will be able to go and actually find for the answers by typing in the required text in the search panel in ServiceNow before you actually log a ticket. We are hoping to have this concluded by Q3 2025. In terms of data management and data services, in Q1, we have already introduced some changes related to a number of XCVMPD processes. These are namely the reference of composition as it is stated in Module 3. We also introduced a new marketing authorization value in XCVMPD, and we have introduced a minor change when it comes to the notification of marketing authorization transfer process when we have two marketing authorization holders registered under two separate headquarters in New Driver Channels. In Q1, we have already been providing XCVMPD and PMS mapping services to national competent authorities, and we foresee that the data is mapped by the end of 2025. Towards the end of Q2, we will also be validating information on updated AMPs in clusters. As you know, at the moment, the cluster validation is performed only for newly submitted product entries, and we will be revising these validation rules to ensure that we can do this also for information that was updated in the existing entries. With regards to data quality, in Q1, we have started data quality review to support PMS submissions, as you might know, namely authorization numbers, and obviously we support the submission of information for critical medicines. We also check the compliance related to the submission of centrally approved product information. In Q1, you were required to submit information on packages related to for critical medicines. We would like to bring to your attention, to those that are not aware, that the deadline has now been extended to May 2025. And in terms of documentation, we have published revised version of chapter 3.2 and the FAQ document in January, reflecting the above changes. We will also be amending these documents in Q2 2025 to ensure that the most up-to-date information is reflected. Next slide, please. With regards to the work completed, just to mention a brief overview of some of the changes that are mentioned on the previous slide. With regards to the submission of authorized medicinal product composition as per module 3, why did we start accepting the information to be provided as per module 3? Well, this is to support marketing authorization holders that wish to provide the composition within their EMP as per module 3 dossier instead of as it is stated in the SMBC. Therefore, from January 2025, you can submit in the XCVMPD the composition as it is in module 3, particularly in sections 3.2p1, or as it is in SMBC. However, you will have to provide as a supporting document the respective extract of module 3 if you chose to submit the information as per module 3, or the SMPC if you chose to submit the information as it is in the SMPC. We will then not raise any follow-up communication with you if the information doesn't match with the document that is attached as the supporting document. The benefit is that this led to process efficiencies, also alignment with regulatory and submission requirements. You can submit the data in XCVMPD and BMS to prepare then web-based EA variation form. As I've previously mentioned, in January, we have also made available a new marketing authorization status, which is called the Valid Pending National Phase. This was to support submissions of information for products approved by a mutually recognized or decentralized procedure, approved in the reference member state, but still under evaluation in the concerned member state. And as I mentioned previously, also there's a minor change when it comes to the notification of the MA transfer process between two companies registered in Eudrovigilance as two separate legal entities in under their own respective headquarters. This is to enable the former marketing authorization holder to transfer and delegate access to the product information in PMS, so not in XCVMPD, but in PMS, to the new marketing authorization holder. Please note that this new change is applicable for transfers that happened only from January 2025. There is no need for you to amend information for AMPs where the marketing authorization was transferred to another MAH before January 2025. What is the benefit? This process change led to increased access control in PMS again, and also we will have enriched data in PMS, which is kept. As you may know from the previous webinars that we have given you, we have been assessing a possibility to have a new technical solution to access the XCVMPD user interface. We have completed this assessment by the end of quarter 1 2025. What is the benefit? If this solution is implemented, users will be able to access the user interface without the need for ActiveX and IETAP extension. Also, you will be able to hopefully use Mac laptops to access the tool, etc. I will be providing more information on the next slides with regards to work planned. Can I have the next slide, please? As I mentioned previously, we are currently, we will be working on the improvement of the validation for updated product information, so that the product records which belong to the same medicinal product are validated together. Again, this will lead to improved data quality. And again, there will be no delay in making the updated product data available for pharmacovigilance and other business processes. With regards to the submission of packages for critical medicines, as I've mentioned, the deadline has been extended because the list of medicines has been updated or was updated in December 2024. And in order for us to give marketing authorization holders more time to submit information on the added medicines, you now have until the 31st of May 2025 to submit the information. We validate the newly submitted records on a weekly basis. And with regards to the work plan for the new XCVMPD user interface, we have requested management approval to start working on this new technical upgrade. And if it is approved, the EMA will work on the development of the new UI from Q3 2025. There will be more information provided on this decision during the PMS Info Day in May. Do we want to go through the highlights first, or maybe any questions we have? Highlights. So just a brief overview of the highlights. Please note the amendment in process for the notifications of MA transfers approved after 1st of January 2025. If you go to chapter 3.2, we have already reflected the change that you need to follow. So the MAH that is invalidating the existing authorized medicinal product record now needs to reference as the MAH within that record the new marketing authorization holder. You are now able to submit AMD composition as per Module 3 dossier, not only as the SMPC. And you can also use the valid pending national phase marketing authorization status in the Article 57 database. Just a reminder to those of you not aware, Windsor Framework is in force from 1st January 2025. Therefore, if you want to have a medicinal product which is currently approved in the EU under the centralized procedure, approved also in UK or in Northern Ireland, you must request this authorization through the MHRA. With regards to ongoing work, we are working on the improvement of cluster validations for new authorized medicinal products. We are providing the mapping services to national competent authorities. As mentioned before, we are working towards having the new technical solution for the XCVMPD user interface. What's coming is hopefully improvements on cluster validation for updated authorized medicinal products. We will also allow you or enable you to search for the FAQs through the articles in Service Now. And just a reminder to everyone, pharmacovigilance fee advice notes will be generated and sent in April 2025. Therefore, you will have until just before July the 1st to review and update your medicinal product entries, because the pharmacovigilance fee invoice will be generated on the data as it is in the database on the 1st of July. And with regards to future changes, integration of product validation with review of substances with SDG flag 0 is planned. However, future details will be shared with you during the upcoming webinars. Do we have any questions that we haven't responded to?
Yes, we have.
Could you please confirm if MAH needs to update modules and SMPCs accordingly if the substance is flagged as VG0?
So for sure, we are recommending to improve the information in XCVMPD/PMS whenever possible, but we are not asking, and I stress the word not asking, companies to go and update Module 3 or update the SMPC. So if either one of them is not using the correct substances or inconsistence, you need to submit what is there. You can, of course, choose to correct it yourself in the documents and then send to us. But for us, we will align with what's submitted to us as Module 3 or SMPC, and we are not asking you to do that. If you want, it's appreciated, but it's not a must or a request from us. For us, is that it needs to be consistent with those documents. That's the only thing we care at the moment.
Thank you, Isabel. As a pharma company, if we decide to keep SMPC instead of Module 3 and for forever, i.e. until the end of XEVMPD, will this have an impact on PMS and EAs later?
Yeah, maybe I can take this one. So as far as we know, there is no impact on PMS or in the EAFs. So if you want to keep this information in XVMPD until it is decommissioned, for us in principle, there is no problem.
Thank you, Marcos. Substitution of substances with SVG flag 0 is not mandatory, but we are receiving third acknowledgement. So is it mandatory? No, it is not mandatory. However, we perform our checks as part of the authorized medicinal product validation. Therefore, if we can update this information or the substance information, we will update it, and that is notified to you via the third acknowledgements. But it is not mandatory as such. Next question. Please may I ask if the UCLM is going to be reviewed and updated again. Also, what will be the deadline for updating the pack sizes for products not on the list?
So maybe I can also take this one. So the SPOR team is not responsible for updating the union list of critical medicines. This is done by the monitoring value stream and ESNP. I think as far as I know, there might be a review per year, unless there is a crisis, and then a new list will be published with the impacted ATC codes and the data that has to be provided, so the products that are impacted. But we might need to really confirm that with them if it's an annual update or is more frequent. For the second question on when to update the products or the pack sizes that are not linked to the union list of critical medicine. So as we said during the last year in the PMS Info Day, we wanted to put a goal for all the companies to have all the products that are authorized in Europe to be submitted to XVMPD by the end of 2026. Our recommendation was, okay, for new products that are authorized, please start submitting all your pack sizes so you already have this information, and then you can work backwards for the products that are already in XVMPD. You can provide the additional pack sizes that are not there. So that was the message. That still remains there. Yeah, so these are the timelines.
Thank you, Marcos. Next question. MAH transfer. Do I have to change the details for QPP master file location email from the sender local code in EV Web? If I don't change these details, will not match with the new MAH above. If I have to change them, sorry, is the new MAH obliged to give them to me? No, you don't have to change it. How would you possibly reference a QPPV from another company in your existing product record? If you are two different legal entities, you need to follow the transfer process that is described in Chapter 3.2, which means that the existing MAH will invalidate the product record and the new MAH will insert the product record information as new, therefore referencing the new MAH's QPPV, master file location, pharmacovigilance inquiries, emails, etc. The former MAH needs to invalidate that product entry, and in that invalidated product entry, you need to reference the new MAH EV code. That is all you need to do. Next question. What is the impact in XEVMPD if the MEDRA indication terms are no longer current, and how can we be notified of such changes, knowing that the third acknowledgement does not specify the reason for the change? Is it possible to extract the LLTs from RMS?
I would need to have a look at all these because, yeah, right now I'm not sure of the implication of this.
In XCVMPD, in the product record, you can reference the terms that are linked to the previous 3 versions of 3 previous Medra versions. So if a Medra term is no longer current in the latest version, and it was still a current term in the previous versions, my understanding is that you can still reference that previous Medra version in your product, including that term.
And with regards to extracting the Medra terms from RMS, Jaume is online, and I think he can confirm that it's not possible for companies to download the Medra from RMS. This is only available to regulators. You're expected to have a Medra license and to get it from MSSO.
That's correct. I mean, anyone can browse the whole content in the RMS, so you can check any LLTs you want. But in terms of extracting, as Isabel said, that's only possible for regulators and EMA.
I see a lot of overlapping questions between XCVMPD and PMS because they're tightly joined. I suggest that we move on to PMS and then we circle back to the questions that have not been answered in writing in the meantime. So off to Marcos presenting PMS.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me give you a bit of the overview of the activities that we have done and that we have planned to do during this year. So as you know, we are working on the customer services. We are supporting the ServiceNow ticket submission and replying to all the questions. We have a bit of a big backlog, but we are working on it. The idea is during this quarter, we want to review and upload the PMS FAQ documents in ServiceNow, as well as other projects and other services are doing. For the data management and data services, as well as data quality, that was already explained on the XCVMPD part. And one of the things we want to do from Q3 is to start monitoring the critical medicines packages and manufacturers compliance to make sure that the data that we are receiving is at least compliant with the requirements that we have. In regards to the documentation, so in Q1, we released the enrichment process guidance, so the single update. It went live on January, and we also released the user manual on how to perform the single enrichment in the product UI. We also provided and released the right PMS API implementation guide, the version 1 in January. We have also released the data protection notice, and the idea is that in Q2, we will release what we call the PMS, PLM, ESMP, and EAF data matrix Excel that I will explain later, together with the update of Chapter 2 and also an update on the right PMS API IG with additional information. In Q3, we expect to go live with the bulk update enrichment process, and therefore we will be updating the navigation guide for the product UI. We also want to release Chapter 4, which is the chapter related to the data quality framework, and also we want to do some Chapter 1 updates. For the awareness and visibility of PMS, you know, we have a lot of webinars and events. So we hosted the PMS API read access for NCAs. We also had different webinars for the enrichment process, for the right PMS API for MA holders and developers. We had the system demos, and now we are having the SPOR updates. Important, 21st of May, we are hosting again the PMS Info Day. The web page is already available, so if you want to already register, because it will be a live broadcasted event, also a face-to-face meeting, it will be a hybrid meeting, you can already register so you don't miss all the information that we will share with with you. And then as part of the agile way of working, we have the different system demos throughout the year and the SPOR updates webinar. For the PMS project related initiatives, so as you already know, and some of you are already doing, you can already submit other enrichments to your products on the union list of critical medicines to the product user interface. And you can also follow the process in XMPD for the transfers, as it has already been explained. In Q3, as I already said, we want to go live with the bulk update process in the product UI. And then in the last box, you have some of the priorities that we also have for 2025. Nevertheless, we have not been able to still allocate the date. We are still discussing when this will happen. So the most important one, and maybe the one that you are waiting the most, is the submission of updates through the PMS API. We are working on it. We will have a UAT, and based on the outcome of this UAT, we will be able to open this in production. We will also want to create additional reports in the product UI and exports, such as the general public export in the dynamic report. We want you to be able to export this information, because right now, the way it is implemented, you cannot really export this Excel. And last but not least, we also want to make it public, the public PMS API, so everybody can have access to public product data through an API. In the next slide, I go a bit into the details of some of these activities. So as I explained, we released the product UI user manual for the single update enrichment process that was to provide support on the enrichment process through the product UI. By the end of January, the navigation guide was updated to explain the process on how you can provide manufacturers and structured pack size data through the user interface. We also released the right PMS API implementation guide, version 1. This is to support MA holders and also software developers on how to build the machine-to-machine connection between your RIM systems and the PMS API. It was released by the end of January as well, with all the technical specifications and relevant material that is useful to increase the support on the automation and the data submission to improve operational efficiency. Linked to the first point, we have the enrichment process, the single update through the product UI. Right now, you are already able to submit manufacturers and pack size, structural pack size data through the product UI for the union list of critical medicines, the products that are under the union list of critical medicines, but also on a voluntary basis, you can do it for the rest of your non-caps. That is because we want to, it's to be compliant with the regulation and also with ESMP. That is the first project that is needing this information to be able to perform their activities. In the next slide, we go a bit into the details on what are we going to do in Q2. So as I said, we have the update of chapter 2 of the EUIG, as well as the right PMS API implementation guide. This is to address comments that we have received from the SMEs, from the software vendors, from you on the different meetings that we have. So we want to provide additional information on business rules, specifications, and the idea is to provide this information this month. We want to share and publish an updated version of these 2 documents. We will also release what we call the PMS, PLM, ESMP, and EAF data matrix Excel. This is because we want you to understand the relationship between the product data elements that are used and are required by different application and use cases. So the idea is to release this data matrix or the Excel, where we will have the PMS data elements and how are they used by, for example, the product UI, EAF, by ESMP. And we want to provide this information in April in our PMS webpage. The idea is to enhance the clarity and the alignment so you understand better how the PMS data is consumed by different systems. And as I explained before, the PMS Info Day, we want to enhance the awareness and give a bit of comprehensive insights on the implications that PMS have for all of you, for different systems. It is happening on the 21st of May. Here you already have the link, but it's also, if you look on the EMA web events page, you can also find it. The idea is that we can have direct engagements with the leaders, with the stakeholders, industry, NCAs, EMA will be participating in this event. We will provide additional information, strategic information. So it is important that you attend to this event. And last but not least, the highlights. So what has changed is, again, in the product UI, we have the single enrichment process. We also implemented the new transfer for NAPs in Exhibit PD because that has an impact on PMS. We released the PMS API, the right PMS API implementation guide, and also the PMS data protection notice. We are working, as I said, on the Chapter 2 updates and the right PMS API implementation guide updates. And also we are working on the bulk update on the product UI. On the other hand, we are also working on the public PMS API, on the PMS data quality improvements and data fixes, and on the release of the data matrix for PMS, PLM, ESMP, and EAM. In the near future, what we want to do is update Chapter 4, the data quality framework, and also release in production the bulk update functionality, so you can update more than one product at a time. And in the long future, we want to upgrade the PMS Fire to R5 to be aligned with EAF. And also, as everybody's waiting, we will decommission in the long future the Exhibit PD submissions. So please stay tuned because there will be updates on all this work during, in the next months. And with this, I think we can go to the questions. I guess there are maybe quite a few questions.
I'm happy to see that the majority have been addressed in writing in the meantime. And there's like a handful where you can have a go.
Okay. Earlier, we had some terms in RMS for manufacturing activities, so the terms were used accordingly, but now we have more terms and more accurate ones. So shall we raise a ticket to get the terms updated in product UI, or will these terms be updated automatically in PMS UI? So the product UI is consuming data directly from RMS. So any change, so if there are new terms added or if there are changes on the names, they will be directly propagated into the product UI. So you will see whatever RMS is doing to this list. So in principle, you don't need to send any ticket. You will just see whatever it is reflected in the RMS list. So yeah, nothing to do on your side here. RMS, would you mind explaining the background of providing composition based on Module 3 when different to the SNPC? When can such difference occur? So this change on how data can be submitted to Exhibit PD we made this change because there was a request by different MA holders that they would like to track the information on the composition as in Module 3, because sometimes the information in Module 3 and in the SNPC is not the same. There are slight changes, like there are, for example, the active substance on Module 3 is captured as a salt, but then the active moiety is in the SNPC, and in their systems, they were capturing Module 3 information. That's why we decided to allow MA holders to provide information either as capturing Module 3 or as in the SNPC if there are discrepancies. So those discrepancies are happening. It's just the way NCAs are approving or EMA are approving the SNPC that sometimes has slightly some differences. And that's why we, agree and allow the MA holders to provide this information. It's just to give more flexibility on how they want to capture the information for their products. Is there a timeline by when the PMS data sent in the FHIR attachment to the EAF will be consumed by EMA and mean we no longer need to also submit data in XCBMPP? So we don't have the timelines yet. In order for this to happen, we need EAF to have the structure changes integrated in their system, and they are working on this. They don't have also clear timelines. They will be investigating during this year, and maybe they will be introducing some changes on it during this year. But for the moment, we don't have, the roadmap when this will happen. So we are dependent on EAF to have the structure changes, and then we also need a couple of additional enablers to be able to consume the data that is coming from EAF. Also, PMS might not only be updated due to changes on variations. So EAF, we also have changes on QPPVs. We have other notifications that are not part of the regulatory process, followed by an EAF submission. So we also need to integrate and allow PMS to receive this information. So we are working on this. That is the target state. This is where we want to go, but we don't have still a timeline or a deadline by when this is going to happen. Okay, what data exactly will be publicly accessible in PMS? So that's a good question. You can go to chapter 5 of the UIG. There you can find an Excel of what data is public and what data is not considered public from PMS. Nevertheless, we are working with the SMEs, the subject matter experts of PMS, to improve this Excel and decide which data will be publicly available through the public PMS API. We will share this information. We are now doing the analysis on how this public API will work, how the access will be granted, what data should be there, and we will start implementing it and building it next quarter. And again, we will discuss with the SMEs what data will be accessible.
I see only 2 questions. If you bear with me, I suggest that we try to address them in writing. We do a little recap and conclusions. And if we still have time after that, and I'll try to be very brief, we can go back to questions. So if we can go to the presentation, I think now if you press the play button, bear with us, it's just a few minutes, a short highlights of what we said in the webinar from the different domains. Can we put it play? So this is what we just announced, and it should have music. I hope you're hearing music. Oh, that defeats the purpose. Okay, lessons learned for next time.
No music. Okay.
Apologies for that. We tried to be innovative and technology is not collaborating. So in our sadly not very successful attempt, we tried to do something very innovative, which is to show a brief video with entertaining music of the key messages. The good news is we have Plan B in old school, and that's the slide that you see now in front of you. So the summary of what we said is highlighted there. So for SMS, key highlights of what we did is the update of custom attributes. First of all, you'll be able to see them, but not search on the API, and also the published SMS guidance with enrichments and particularly business rules. It's the first time we do that. On RMS, we have the update of short names and descriptions on the manufacturing activity list and the planned review of special precautions for storage, shelf life, and material list. On OMS, we finally started the registration of natural persons, and we closed any open ticket that we had in service desk for those people. We started doing monthly currency checks, so checking against national business registries to see if the organizations are still valid, if they haven't been updated in a while. And we are helping HMA to map the manufacturers that they have in a specific database, but we should have them already in OMS. On XCVMPD, a few reminders. So we launched a transfer process, changes to that. We allowed the possibility to submit composition according to Module 3, and also pending products that have not been approved in concerned member states, but have been approved in reference member state. And we've just completed the assessment of what we can do and what we will do on XCVMPD user interface. On PMS, just a reminder, we went live with the PY single update release. So now we can formally go to the user interface and start adding manufacturers one by one at the moment. We've released a series of guidance, and particularly the guidance to support machine-to-machine submission of manufacturers and package detail, the PMS API Right Implementation Guide. So those are a few of the highlights and reminders we advertised today. Now, next slide, please. So as always, and as we did, please bear with us. If you could now go back to Slido, and there's a second poll that we would like to have your feedback on today's webinar. So the first poll was, how do we engage better with you? This poll is, how did you find this webinar? Was it to the mark? What can we do to improve? And lessons learned, I know we need to improve the video next time. So I've already taken note. You don't need to report that one. But please give us your feedback on what we can do to improve this webinar. I'll quickly go. Can we share the poll just to see that people are going there doing that poll? Glad to see we did not upset anyone so far. Thank you. Next one, so we see what's happening. I still see only a few participants. It's really important that we see feedback. It helps us do better next time. And specifically this one, what you liked most and what you would like us to avoid. The next one. I'm surprised that, I'm not surprised. Typically, the feedback is not enough time of questions. And on that note, we have 10 minutes to go back to questions. There you go, promises addressed. So if we can go back to the PMS questions, and we'll soon fish out whatever any non-addressed question we might have. So Marcos, back to you. Sorry, not off the hook.
So if IMA holder chooses not to handle the substances with SPG flag 0 and instead let EMAs fix handle it, is there any possibility to sync the changes from PMS to MA holder via the PMS API? So yes, because the idea is if we change something in XCVMPD, it will be propagated to PMS, and then if the MA holder is consuming data through the PMS API, then they will be able to get this information. Now, the question is if we will do this fix and when and for which products, and that will be on your PMS data. Then you also need to change if you want the data that you have in XCVMPD or whatever. So, but I mean, the answer to the question is yes, you will receive these updates and you can consume it from the PMS API. Okay, regarding the new value, valid pending national phase, that it means that the 15-30 days deadline for entry of such product start from the approval of the reference member state and not from the approval of the respective national competent authority. Should an update be done when the respective MCA approves? So we have allowed now MA holders to submit these pending national products because there is a requirement from EAF, the web-based EAF, to have these products in the PLM portal. So it is not mandatory for you to submit these products. It is optional, and you should only do this if you want to use the web-based variation form for a procedure where one country has authorized the product and the rest are still under the national phase. Otherwise, I would not recommend to submit this because it's more data that you need to maintain. So only if you are going to use them in the web-based, submit this information. We don't have this, it's an optional submission, so these 15-30 calendar days are not really applicable here. But if you submit this data, as soon as the NCA grants the authorization for each specific product, you need to update those CV codes. You need to indicate the ME number. You might need to update the name of the product. You need to update all the information that was not submitted. And of course, you need to update the authorization status.
Address.
So most of the questions, I guess, are already replied, but as we have time, maybe we can go through the most popular ones. So we have the question on have national authorities set a deadline for their PMS and XCV cleansing? Can their progress be communicated by the EMA in a common publication like on the SPOR quarterly webinars? For example, some authorities have started to ask the addition of national numbers in XCV. So, as you know, and as we have explained, EMA is supporting some NCAs on this exercise to map the data that we have in PMS with the data that they have in their national databases. I think we can provide maybe some updates on future webinars. If this is something, I mean, I guess it's something that we can shortly communicate. And the idea is that we want to give this information to NCAs by the end of the year. So together with the deadline that MA holders have to also provide information on the Union List of Critical Medicines, NCAs can also have the mappings performed in their systems. Brexit PD is mandatory to add the national number in the package description, and what is the deadline? So it is not mandatory for you to include the national number, but it is highly recommended because that will help NCAs to map their specific packages to the packages that we will have in PMS.
Sorry.
And also it will help you a lot to identify specific packages when you need to enrich the structured pack size data in PMS. So I would highly recommend that you include the national numbers on the package description because that will help you a lot with the enrichment process. But again, it is not mandatory. We have been informed that XCV data in PMS is not synchronized, and we could see some differences. Is there any update on this part and any plans how we may overcome these problems? So what we are doing is we are analyzing if there is any issue with the synchronization between XCV and PMS. We know there is a queue of messages to be processed every day because the amount of messages that we are receiving is a bit high, but we are receiving and we are processing those messages. What we will also do is try to implement some type of reporting to make sure that we can follow the synchronization between XCV and PD and PMS. So we are working on the investigation of this. And yeah, this is the way we will proceed. For RMS, could you clarify what the impact would be if the pharmaceutical form term marked as non-current updated in XMPD? We haven't taken any action yet, and it is still unclear which replacement term should be used in XMPD. Maybe we can also reply from the XMPD side. So there are non-current terms that don't have a current term in RMS that could be replaced by. This is because as all products might have been approved with terms that are not part of the DQM, are not standard terms. And that's why we have created these non-current terms in RMS. So we can, whenever we map or move this product from XMPD to PMS, we at least have a term in PMS. So it depends case by case, because there are cases where you cannot replace a non-current term by a current one. In principle, there is no impact. This is the way the product was authorized. Unless the NCA wants to change it to a standard term, then the non-current one should be maintained. If the updates via PMS API could be submitted only later this year or maybe in 2026, if we have to update manufacturing and pack size within 2025, does it mean we have to do the work twice, one on PMS product UI and one on our real system? This is really time consuming. So in principle, not. So what we are doing now in Q3 is we will open the bulk update. You will be able to submit the same change for multiple products. Additionally, we will be doing the UAT on the PMS API, and we need to, based on the outcome, we will decide when we open the API into production. But if you submit your enrichment through the product UI, this data will be in the PMS API, and whenever you are able to connect to your system, you should get this information that you have submitted through the product UI. So if you have enriched your product through the UI, you should not redo the same work in the through the PMS API. These are two different ways of sending data, but at the end, PMS will already have it if you have done the submissions through the UI.
And I think we're about time. Just to say, I've been quickly looking into poll and feedback, particularly the negative one. That's how we can improve, not for any particular reason. I understand people think it's a lot of information in a short period of time. Just to say, we've discussed alternatives to that, and that would mean either longer times or more sessions. And we also received feedback that it's sometimes too much. So we'll try to see how we can find a balance to summarize things even further and create opportunities to elaborate on topics on extra webinars, not these. So this one would always be very short and crisp, maybe, and we see what else we can do to provide more discussion elsewhere. So thank you for joining us this morning. I hope it was worth your time, and looking forward to see you at the next event, which is the PMS Info Day. So until 21st of May. See you then.